The Myers house was an unassuming American home smack dab in the middle of a dreary Illinois suburb, but it's also where a legendary horror villain kicked off his career in murder. This house made many appearances in the Halloween film franchise, and it looked different almost every time. The Myers house was where the first Halloween began. Besides some text and a jack-o'-lantern, this building is the first thing you ever get to see in the film. On the Halloween of 1963, Donald and Edith Myers were out while their teenage daughter Judith babysat their 6-year-old son Michael. The Myers house was shown to be a white, 2-story high clapboard house located in a small town called Haddonfield. In reality, it was South Pasadena. According to series lore, the house was built in the 1890s, and the Myers family moved into it in 1945. Through his point of view, young Michael provided a thorough look at his home. The house was well maintained and furnished, incredibly ordinary and familiar. There was a couch with a floral pattern on it, a bowl of fruit between 2 candles, a rocking chair, and a painting of an idyllic countryside hanging over the staircase. There were no pictures of the Myers family hung anywhere in the house, and the only sign in the home that Halloween had arrived was a jack-o'-lantern resting on the railing of the porch. The Myers house had no identity of its own. It could be anybody's house. It was here in this house where a young Michael Myers murdered his sister. Retreating to the lawn, Michael was stopped dead in his tracks by his parents. The adults were dumbfounded to see their son holding a bloody knife. Michael was sent off to Smiths Grove Sanitarium, where he would remain until adulthood. At some point, the Myers house was left completely empty. Stories differ on what happened to Michael's parents. One account is that they continued to live in the house until they died in a car crash. Another story is that Donald and Edith moved to Indiana out of shame, leaving their only surviving daughter in the care of the Strode family, who would also care for the house. By the time Michael returned to his home in 1978, the house had been put up for sale by Strode Realty. The Myers house was in a state of disrepair. The site was no doubt a prime target for vandalism. The white paint was faded, the gutter was falling loose, and the windows were in disarray. However, the lawn was still well groomed. The interior of the Myers house fared no better. The house was empty save for a partially eaten dog corpse, wallpaper was torn in places, the rooms were musty and dilapidated. In Halloween 2, on the same night as the first film, a mob formed at the Myers house in the wake of Michael's first wave of killings. The mob assaulted the house with rocks, shattering the windows. Dr. Loomis likened this activity to a tribal mentality. The Myers house wouldn't reappear for another 11 years, but when it returned, it was drastically different. In Halloween 5, the Myers house was, inexplicably, a decrepit blue Victorian-style mansion that spanned 3 stories and was surrounded by overgrown vegetation. Also, the house was no longer empty. Furniture remained, like a piano and a grandfather clock. The house was expectedly dusty and covered by a mass of cobwebs, indicating further neglect over the years. Rubble was strewn about the place, and the windows were boarded up haphazardly. Lighting in the Myers house was eerie, cathedral-like. Somebody may have taken residence at the Myers house at some point during the 26 years since Michael killed Judith in 1963, perhaps the Man in Black. In the attic of the Myers house, Michael had created a shrine decorated with candles and the corpses of his latest victims, which upset Michael's niece Jamie. At the end of the shrine sat a coffin on top of a bathtub, which was Jamie's intended resting place. The lack of continuity in the look of the Myers house was due to Halloween 5's shooting in Salt Lake City, not having access to the original house. The choice of a mansion was likely for artistic reasons. The bigger space simply offered more to work with. In Halloween 6, the Myers house still didn't look much like the original, but it at least looked like an ordinary house again. The Strode family had moved into the house, so it was refurbished, repainted green and white, and featured a balcony. The front yard was cluttered with boxes, bikes, and fallen leaves. Halloween decorations were prominent, jack-o'-lanterns especially. The interior of the home suggested that the Strodes had been occupying the place for longer than they could have. Once again, the house looked like the kind of place anybody could have grown up in, but there were still no family photos on display. In 1995, the Myers house was far more lived in than it had ever been. In Halloween Resurrection, the Myers house existed in another timeline where nobody seemed to have occupied the house except for Michael since his first killing. This Myers house actually looked very close to the original. The house was the primary setting of the movie and had become incredibly dilapidated, more so than ever. This house took after Halloween 5's with its overgrown lawn and boarded up windows. The windows also showed signs of the damage that they endured in Halloween 2. The lawn sported a dead-looking tree with unruly branches, and a white picket fence that was falling apart, much like the house that it surrounded. Vines could be seen growing all over the house itself. The inside of this Myers house didn't look much like the original, and it still had all of the furniture left over, supposedly. There also seemed to be family pictures. New details of the house were revealed, like a high chair with straps that was apparently used to restrain Michael, and in a closet there was a mannequin with a head that resembled Michael's signature mask. These details could have been a ruse though, because a reality show was being shot at the Myers house and nothing inside may have been genuine. A trapdoor was located in the basement, which led to a hidden chamber that Michael had been squatting in during the years between Halloween 2 and H2O. On Michael's bed laid a bizarre doll with a zipper mouth and nails in its eyes. There was a newspaper clipping about Michael's sister Laurie Strode that hung on the wall above the bed. On a nearby table were mutilated but still living rats that Michael had been eating. It's also shown that there was a series of corridors located beneath the Myers house. There was also a garage which was being used as a control room for the reality show, and it was also where a fire started which burned down the house. The Halloween series ended, burning down the house it started in. The Myers house has become synonymous with Halloween. There was another Halloween film with another Michael Myers that stabbed his sister in another house, because that's how it has to go. No matter the vision, the house will remain, along with the boy. The original house was once abandoned and has since moved, was renovated and became a chiropractor's office. It still stands, but it's not quite the same. However, there is a replica Myers house in North Carolina that specializes as a tourist attraction, and the likeness to the original house is uncanny, but I don't think anybody was stabbed there.